Most companies are about to repeat the most expensive mistake from the cloud era, this time in AI. When cloud showed up, enterprises copied their server images, their antivirus, their backup agents straight into virtual machines that build them by the hour. Same old operating model, new platform, years of innovation debt. Today, how to draw the ownership line for AI so your teams move fast without repeating that is what we're going to answer. I'm James DeLucia. I own product security at Honeywell on AI, having released over 2,500 products around the world, and recently I've given over 100 talks on security engineering in the age of AI. Let's jump in. Well, this trap we've already lived through once. Look, before we touch on I want you to picture the last big platform shift you and I lived through, the cloud. Here's what most enterprises did. The cloud shows up on demand, build by the hour, and instead of building for it, we copied the data center straight into it. Server images, antivirus, backup software, lifted out of the rack and dropped into a virtual machine. Same as it ever was. Same operating model, new platform, and it felt safe. It was fast because nothing changed except the invoice. That's the trap. And it has a cost. I call it innovation debt. You forfeit the speed, the analytics, the integration, the whole reason you moved, and you keep all the old maintenance and compliance overhead. So you pay twice. Here's why I'm dragging you back to 2012. Because I am watching the same movie start again with AI. Somebody bolts a chatbot onto last year's process and calls it an AI strategy. It's the forklift all over again. But what the cloud finally taught us, what did the cloud really teach us? So what fixed it? Two things had to change together, and this is the part people forget. One, the way we build changed. We stopped copying and started building it natively. Agile, DevOps, containers, atomic services that spin up when they're needed and spin down when they're not. New tech needed a new way to build. Fine. Everybody kind of knows that part. But this is the one I care about. The way we own security changed too. It had to. Because on the cloud, the honest answer to who's responsible for this is it depends on what part of the stack you bought. Now, you know I hate ending anything with it depends. So let me give you the answer. Because there is actually one. It's called the shared responsibility model. And once you draw it, the whole thing gets simple. So let's draw the line. Here's the mechanic. And it's just a line moving up and down a stack. Buy a finished application, software as a service. The provider owns almost the entire stack below your endpoint. Their infrastructure, their patching, their physical security, you mostly own how to use it and the data you put in. Buy a machine, a raw service, now the line drops. The provider owns the infrastructure underneath, but you own what you put on top of it. That's yours. Buy a platform. The line drops again, you own even more above the boundary. Same question every single time, right? Where does the line end and where does mine begin? My ownership. And then it runs you down the list. Who owns cybersecurity? Who owns physical security? Testing, the certifications, the data protections, the operational assurance, the resilience. You go item by item. That's it. That's the discipline the cloud beat into us. Now run the exact same play for AI. And AI, I promise you, is not special enough to skip this. It's the same disciplined thinking, nothing new, just applied. Say you're calling a hosted model, any of the frontiers, an API endpoint. Before you ship, go find the line. You ask for real, actually, what is the provider truly responsible for? Model trust. Where is the trainee data even coming from? Commercial rights to the output, authenticity, availability, their cybersecurity, and you write it down. Honestly, what they cover and what they don't, and what they assure you to provide and what they don't. Now go the other way. You pull down an open source model, you deploy it yourself, locally, on AWS, on Azure. The line just moved. You own a lot more now. More control, more of the stack, more of the responsibility. But here's the trap inside the trap. And this is the one I tattoo on people. Provider gives you the infrastructure and assurances. This is not the same as provider taking the problems off your plate. Who owns whether this output is accurate enough to ship? You. Who owns the regulatory answer when the auditor calls? Also you. Who owns the customer data you fed in and the use case you're standing behind? Still you. A vendor can be responsible for their model. A vendor cannot be responsible for your ethics, your compliance posture, or your commercial rights. Don't ever confuse they handle that with I don't have to think about that. Because AI is not a search engine. It is not a bot. It's a set of tools we are still discovering, and not every answer it hands you is correct. So you keep the critical thinking, you don't automate the judgment away by default. When you can't control the other side. Now, real talk, sometimes you can't control the third party at all. You can't march into a model vendor and make them build it your way. So what do? Throw your hands up? No. You recognize the risk you can't transfer, and you compensate inside the boundary you do control. That's the whole move. There's an old security line I keep coming back to. Protect the server side when you can't control the client side. Same idea here. You can't govern how the model was trained. Fine. Then you validate its outputs on your side. Where you own the pipeline, you can't guarantee it never hallucinates. Then you put the human check at the point where it touches your customer. Understand the parties. Understand the trust between them. And pour your controls into the piece that actually is yours. You don't need to control everything. You need to know exactly where your line is and be honest about defending it. The part that actually matters, the framing. And here's where it gets interesting for you and me, right? Because think about what changed. We've entered a world where infinite code gets generated in seconds. The model can produce more outputs than any team of engineers could ever keep up with. So, genuine question. Where does the value go now? It's not the raw lines of code anymore. It's not the plumbing, the debugging. The value moved. It moved to how you shape the inputs, how you define the outputs, and how you frame the environment this thing runs in. That's the whole reason this video is called Framing AI Innovation and Security, because framing is the work now. And that's your job too. Drawing that responsibility line, deciding what a trustworthy output even looks like, setting the constraints. You're not down in the weeds reviewing every generated line. You're designing the environment it's allowed to operate in. That's the higher value seat than security has ever had. So take it. Fast cars need good brakes. So let me bring it home, because I think a lot of security people get this exactly backwards. Our job is not to narrow the road until innovation teams can't move. I've seen that. The Department of No, walls on every edge, and all it does is send engineering around you or out the door. Fast cars need good brakes. Not narrow roads, good brakes. You put good brakes on a fast car so it can go fast safely. That's guardrails, not walls. That's enabling posture. And that's the actual work this week. Take one AI thing your teams are building right now, one, and draw the line on it, item by item, model trust, data, commercial rights, ethics, regulatory. For each one, market provider, market yours, or market shared. And everywhere you land on, we can't control this, name the compensating controls you're putting in your boundaries. Do that. And you're not forklifting the old world into the new. You are building for it. You get to move fast with clear ownership. And honestly, that's the fun part of this job. So go draw the line and have an amazing time. It's an awesome adventure.